Welcome to Embody Your Brilliance, a podcast for visionary daughters of immigrants and creative entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Eunice Kimian, somatic life and business coach, mom, and Korean American eldest daughter of immigrants. Each week, you'll hear stories, insights, and conversations to help you embody your unique brilliance beyond survival mode so that you can design a life you actually want and grow a peaceful, profitable business you're proud of that supports you. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Embody Your Brilliance. I'm your host, Eunice Kimian. And today I want to talk about why creative expression is a core value of mine and why creativity is not a luxury in my life and business. It's a non-negotiable, and it is an invitation for you to connect with what your core values are, and also an invitation to be curious about what your relationship is like to creative expression and creativity. So this is a topic that came to mind because I recently went back to traditional Korean dance class, which some of you know I'm obsessed with. And it's a big deal because it's officially been almost 2 years since I went consistently. And it's something that's pained me because, as some of you know, it's not because I just became lazy or I just couldn't go anymore for lack of motivation. It's because I got pregnant and it just became impossible, truly, to be able to commute with my back pain and just all the different symptoms. And it was just hard to dance, especially like the drum dances and things like that, where it's like tied around the belly. So, as a pregnant woman, it's just really hard because I moved, and that meant to commute to dance class was almost an hour and a half to get there. And then it's like 2 hours there, and then coming back is an hour. So what is that? Like 4.5 hours each time. So it just was a lot. And ever since, there's the postpartum recovery, and then with a toddler, it's very hard to balance making time for my business as well as being there for Teo and having that quality time, especially when he has a set bedtime. And so it overlaps with my dance class. Anyway, this is all to say that's why it's such a big deal that I've been able to go this past week. And the feeling that I had in my body when I went back was just, I don't even know, just this feeling like creative life force surging through my body again. And it just feels so good to sweat. It feels so good to be dropped into my body and my soul in that way. And to backtrack, to go all the way back to the beginning of when my journey with traditional Korean dance happened, is I started traditional Korean dance in 2022. Traditional Korean dance is a practice that originated 5,000 years ago as part of Korean shamanic rituals. It's an incredibly spiritual embodied practice. And from the very first class, it was a full body yes of feeling satisfied and just lit up and giddy inside. And so for basically all of 2022 and 2023, I was deeply devoted to this practice. And my word for 2023 was pleasure. I've noticed it's a charged word when I shared that intention and my word with others. And, some people felt a little uncomfortable. Some people really resonated. A lot of folks were just curious to learn more. Like, why is that your word? And my intention of pleasure was sparked by multiple elements, but one that stands out to me is the giddy joy, the pure joy and delight that I feel while dancing traditional Korean dance. And so for basically all of 2022 and 2023, I was deeply devoted to my pleasure through this ancient art form. At one point, I was spending over 20 hours a week at the studio. That's like literally a part-time job, you know? And actually, a big reason why I decided at that point to return to a full-time job at a startup, this was back in 2022, was to create more time, space, and financial resources to be able to spend more time at the studio. So literally, like that was a big reason why I shifted things. And part of it is the time that I'm dedicating to the dance, but also it's an expensive hobby. So part of the dance performing and all of that is affording the beautiful hanbok, the Korean traditional costume, and accessories and everything involved. It requires a lot of investment. And while it may seem like the devotion to this craft came out of nowhere, actually, one of my earliest childhood memories of joy was dance, specifically ballet. And I don't regret many things in life, but quitting ballet is one of those things I wish I gave it more of a chance from my childhood. I quit around the time I immigrated to the US and I just didn't make it happen, you know? Like I didn't jump through all the hoops to just keep going. And part of it was side story. I was in Korea at the time learning ballet, and my teacher brings a professional ballerina to class one day. I was 7 years old at the time, or 6 years old, or something like that. And they're like, oh, yeah, look at her feet. And it was just like bloody and just, it, it looked so painful. And the ballerina was talking about how it's so painful and her feet are misshapen and all these things. And the 6-year-old me was frightened. I was like, "Oh, maybe this is not a good idea." And I don't really know why the teacher brought that in and, like, created this fear around this, but I wish that someone had told me that there is the equivalent of the ballerina feet for any activity you do, any career path you choose. There's always something either inconvenient or some sort of hard thing that comes with that hobby or that career. For example, as a public speaker or a thought leader or an author, yes, it might be very, very aligned with your lifestyle choice, your passions, your talent, but there's always something hard about it in the sense that maybe it requires so much time for the books to come out into the world. Maybe it's the realities of the publishing industry, or even as an entrepreneur. Like, I love entrepreneurship, and it can also be really difficult. So, anyway, that is a core value that I hope to teach Teo and pass down to Teo of don't quit on a bad day. Give yourself the opportunity to go back into neutral or at least have a good day with it. And you can choose. You have the autonomy to choose. But growing up, I just saw something wrong with some sort of hobby, some sort of career path, and I would just pivot away thinking that there is some career path or hobby out there that doesn't have any negative thing, you know? Anyway, going back, so quitting ballet was something that I wish I hadn't done because it gave me so much joy to dance and perform. Like, I sometimes wonder what kind of life I would be living if I didn't quit dance. And I am very grateful for the version of my life and version of myself I am today. But it is something that I had in mind. So that's to give some context as to why traditional Korean dance means so much to me, because to me, it feels like I'm reclaiming that. It feels like my inner child is very nurtured and feels so seen when I dance and perform traditional Korean dance. And it's almost like living out that life and living out that part of me that I didn't let myself live out. Because part of why I deprioritized creative joy and dance too was that I was so focused on school, career, like security, success, all the things that my survival self made sure to prioritize. And it's almost like I couldn't afford to allot so much time and energy into creativity. So my reclamation of my time and energy going into creativity goes way deeper than just having fun. It's like such a testament to my journey of allowing myself to live the life that I truly want. And traditional Korean dance has felt like a joyful celebration of my somatic healing journey. And it's almost like integrating all of the learnings about somatic healing. We always talk about reconnect with your body, with your breath, the sensations, with movement, all of that. And it's like, I get that through dance. It impacts how I show up as a coach, as a mom, as a facilitator, speaker, as a human, because I'm enjoying my delicious connection to my body, my ancestors, sound, movement, breath, creativity, pleasure. And it just makes me truly feel alive. And I also love that not only does my inner child feel nurtured, my inner ancestor also feels very in her element and alive. And it's almost like my body remembers this dance. It's like ancestral remembrance, somatic remembrance. When I first danced to that music, I felt like I danced before. And what's also so beautiful about this dance is that my teacher says traditional Korean dancers peak in their 60s. So, unlike ballet or sports where our physical bodies peak in performance in our 20s or 30s, traditional Korean dance movements are not so rigorous or not as rigorous on the body. And she insists that through decades and decades of practice and decades of going through life living, traditional Korean dancers in their 50s and 60s are able to express a deeper level of emotional and spiritual nuance through their performance. And I just appreciate this perspective because it makes me feel young. And there are a lot of older ladies at the studio, so I feel really young there. And by older, I mean like there are women in their 70s. So it's a big range. And it makes me feel like it's not too late to pursue something that I love? And that feeling of being too late always came up for me when I thought of reintroducing dance into my life. So anyway, I had recently been on a hiatus with traditional Korean dance because when I got pregnant, it just became really hard to drive for long distances. And I was also being careful not to overstretch my ligaments. And so I had to find other ways to channel this creative life force energy. So throughout my pregnancy journey and new motherhood journey, I had been leaning into my creatorship energy that I felt every day in growing my baby and mothering my baby, the joy, the presence, the wonder that I felt with creating life, and the trust, surrender, and confidence I felt in my body as I prepared for birth, the silly, loving energy that I showed up with my son, now toddler. Also, the creative flow I feel in my business, in supporting my clients, in creating this podcast, all of these things. So I found ways to keep it alive, that creative energy. But truly, there is nothing like it. Like when I went back to class, I tried going back to class last year, earlier postpartum, like 6 months postpartum or something. It was just so hard with breastfeeding and just making it back in time to be with Teo and everything. But now I'm in a different position. Teo is now 16 months old. We're doing daycare. So I just have actually more space in my schedule to dedicate towards my business. And I had to remind myself part of why I'm choosing entrepreneurship is the flexibility and the spaciousness in my schedule to be able to dance in the middle of the day if I need to. So when the survival version of me was saying, oh, if I leave the workday for 4 hours in the middle of the day, like, how am I going to reach my goals? Or like, are you really prioritizing dance over business right now? There's a part of me that says that. But how I felt last week after going to dance class again was if I sat on the computer for 4 more hours trying to get more things done, I'm sure I would have gotten some things done. But coming back with that creative life force energy surging through me after class, not only am I just happier and more at peace and just creatively alive, but it inevitably spills into my business, as in I'm more creatively inspired, I'm more energized, I feel I work faster in my business because I'm motivated to create that time for dance. So, yeah, I invite you to think about what is something that brings you so much life. Like it's so life giving and it generates creative life force energy. And are you currently prioritizing it? And if there's a part of you wondering, can I afford to? I hear you. And also, my question is, can you afford not to? Because why are you creating this business in the first place? And what's going to help you sustain your momentum as a human, not just as an entrepreneur? Because you are a human first, and your body, your spirit, your creative life force are the engine, are the vessel through which you're bringing your vision to life. And this became even more of a realization to me recently when I sat down and wrote down what are my top core values in this season of life right now. And one of my core values is creative expression and creativity. And I realized that, oh, this is why traditional Korean dance means so much to me. Also, because creativity to me is not an indulgence, it's not a nice to have, it's a core value. And when I don't nurture that side of me, when I don't allow myself to express my creativity and nurture it, it really feels like my soul is dying and dehydrated. So I realized that I really need to treat my creative expression and movement and dance as a non negotiable, as a core value. Treat it as the core value that it is. And let my schedule and let my daily life reflect my core values. And my nervous system feels so much more regulated when I allow this physical outlet, this expression, this performance of dance, allow my life force to express itself. And again, and how this impacts my business too, is that when I perform on stage, when I perform traditional Korean dance on stage and I feel the stage lights, I see the crowd, and I feel my feet moving on the stage, it awakens this other part of me that also helps my business. Not that everything I do needs to help my business, but if it helps you prioritize your well being and creative life force by tapping into all the benefits that you'll see in your business too, there's nothing wrong with that as well, you know? And it helps convince my survival self to get on board. So it's like, okay, you performing on the stage not only gives you life, but also it helps you practice the type of embodied presence that you want to bring into your speaking engagements, into sharing your voice in a bigger way and feeling safe to be seen in a bigger way. So there's nothing wrong with finding ways to satisfy both the ambitious survivalist side of you and also the version of you that just wants to play, that wants to create, to express themselves. You know, it's okay. It's all a dance in terms of reintegrating all of these parts of us and prioritizing and deprioritizing and elevating things to be a non negotiable versus nice to have. And so, my question to you is, what are your top values in this season of life? And what are you treating on this list as a luxury instead of a non negotiable? And what is your relationship to creatorship energy, to creative life force, creative expression? Because regardless of whether or not this is a top value of yours, it is an incredibly powerful part of the human experience that can also make a huge impact in sustaining your business forward and helping you birth your vision into existence, into reality. Because that's what creativity is. That's what creation is bringing the intangible into tangible. So let me know what came up for you. If you're ready to bring your vision into tangible reality, I'm your person. That is my superpower. And I would love to help you embody your unique zone of genius, your unique brilliance, and grow a thriving, fulfilling business that reflects who you truly are. I am enrolling the final spots for one-on-one coaching this year. So if you've been curious about working together and wanting to explore what that looks like, now is the time to get on my calendar if you want my support in your corner for the rest of 2025. Book your one-on-one clarity call. The link is in the show notes. And I am so excited to learn more about your vision, some of the roadblocks you're facing, and create an action plan together for the next 6 months so that you can finally bring your big vision to life. If you're ready to become more visible as your whole integrated, undiluted self and make more money with relaxed confidence and deeper trust in yourself, in your unique gifts that you're meant to bring to the world, book your clarity call today. And I look forward to connecting. All right, y'all. See you next week.